Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve. Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into our time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
An episode of the Elliott Lewis-produced program Crime Classics. This episode was originally broadcast October 14th, 1953, based on true stories. The 7-layered arsenic cake of Madame Lafarge.
Crime Classics, brought to you by Plymouth, with a reminder that tomorrow is the day for your first look at the big, bright, beautiful new 54 Plymouth. On display tomorrow. Good evening. I am Thomas Hyland with another true story of crime. Listen. That was a cake baker breaking an egg and separating it, the white here, the yolk here. That was the last of 12 eggs to be separated. Next step in the recipe, beat the whites. Our cake baker is French and a good baker, too, so, of course, the cake will be of a lightness and a delicacy that... A cake that kisses back. Pour in the sugar, the flour, and now the ingredient that makes this cake different from all other cakes. You didn't hear anything because it was only a smidgen, and smidgens don't make any more noise, not even a smidgen of arsenic, which that was. The noise comes later. So tonight, my report to you on the 7-layered arsenic cake of Madame Lafarge.
Crime Classics, a new series of true crime stories taken from the records and newspapers of every land from every time. Your host each week, Mr. Thomas Hyland, connoisseur of crime, student of violence, and teller of murders. And now, once again, Mr. Thomas Hyland and his report on the 7-layered arsenic cake of Madame Lafarge.
France, as the fourth decade of the 19th century was closing, Louis Philippe was on the throne. It was late summer of 1839, a season of unrest in Paris. In the dark alleys and dank cellars, a populace seethed and grumbled and wrote slogans in chalk on the cobblestones, phrases such as allons, à bas, en avant, aux guillotines, which meant that in this stage people were either for things or against things, or wanted them up or down or forward or guillotined. This was in the city. But a few kilometers away in the country, in Glandier, it was peaceful. Summer was dying gently, and the folk took their cue from nature.
I'm quite sure she will be eminently satisfactory, madame. Her name is Marie Fortuné Capello. It is music, no? Marie Fortuné Capello.
Is she rich?
She has 25,000 francs in her own name.
Marie Fortuné Capello.
She will make a most excellent daughter-in-law to you, madame. I personally will guarantee it.
Huh?
I only meant that she is of quality. I personally knew her father, an artilleryman to Napoleon.
Sterling.
Who froze to his cannon outside of Moscow.
Commendable.
So, you see, you have come to the correct marriage broker. Madame.
Yes?
Your son, Charles, he has been apprised of the arrangement you are negotiating for him?
25,000 francs.
Yes, and her own trousseau.
He has been apprised.
Go to him then, and tell him he is most fortunate. His beloved is not only of wealth, but of beauty. We are in agreement, madame?
She's in good health?
Excellent.
She has never been married before?
Never.
Then we are in agreement.
Therefore, if you please...
10% of 25,000.
2,500 francs.
Here. 3,000.
And 500 francs change. Madame.
Yes?
Your son, your fortunate son, Charles.
Yes?
He still spends his time at the blast furnace?
I cannot get him interested in anything else.
strange. I only say this because I recall in my youth there were other things to do. Strolling, picnics in the bois.
My son Charles is a young man who likes to spend his time at the blast furnace.
To each his own, eh, madame? Goodbye, madame.
Charles Lafarge was one of those rare individuals who was just a natural-born smelter, an unsung Bessemer, as it were. In his early youth, he evinced a healthy interest in iron things and tongs and anvils and blast furnaces. His father had died while fishing for bloaters in the Seine, this when Charles was 3 years old. His mother, a good woman, was quick to recognize her son's natural bent and indulged his talents. As a matter of fact, she invested nearly all her savings in a blast furnace and an ironmongery business for her son. Charles spent most of his waking hours in the shop, shaping things on the anvil, cooling metal, or what he liked best to do, smelting. He was doing that the day his mother broke the news to him.
Her name is Marie-Fortune Capello.
And he was 6 feet 4 inches tall.
What of her?
You will marry her.
Why?
All young men get married. You'll have a wife now, son. Son,
Yes, Mama.
come here to me, closer. I want to look at you.
At what do you look, Mama?
Nothing. You'd better get cleaned up.
And he did. Charles got cleaned up. He bathed, shaved, and got into the clothes of a gentleman of the country. He was introduced to his fiancée, made guttural noises of approval, and in a few hours they were married. The ceremony took place in the empty and dismal halls of the Lafarge castle. In attendance were Mama Lafarge and one Dennis Barbier. Dennis, it should be mentioned, was an employee and bosom friend to Charles. And it must be assumed that Dennis was happy for his friend for having brought such a winsome and lovely creature into an abode usually reek with odors of sulfur and slag. At the end of the ceremony, Dennis offered his arm to Mama, and they left. Then, this is what happened to the newlyweds.
But it frightens me.
Frightens?
Please.
Frightens? How?
The terrible heat of it.
Well, it is a fire. It is hot. How frightens?
Please.
Hey, look to me.
Yes?
This bar, this iron bar. You see it bending. It. Look. Why did you not look?
I do not know.
My mama said to me you would do what I say you do.
I will try.
Well, then look to me.
Yes?
This metal piece, this round metal piece, you see?
Yes.
For you.
What?
For you.
I don't...
To lock about you if you will run away from me.
A shackle?
Do not run away from me.
Oh, don't touch me.
Husband to you.
It is not your husband, madame. It is I. It is Dennis. It is Dennis. Dennis.
What do you want?
Your husband sent me to speak with you. May I come in? Your husband said I was to enter your rooms and to speak with you. Thank you, madame.
To speak to me of what?
Madame, how long has it been since you've been here in the chateau?
You know it. 4 months more.
Such joy you have brought to all of us. Of course, we have not seen much of you since you've locked yourself in your room for the most part, but if this makes you happy, all of us are happy.
Say what you wish to say and get out.
I bring sad news.
What?
Your husband has gone to Paris alone. I will turn my back while you weep. You finished? Oh, Madame, you look so radiant after a good cry.
When did he go?
This morning.
Oh,
He has a plan for a blast furnace, a new principle.
my husband.
He was introduced to pencil and paper just last week, and already he has the theory for a new furnace. Remarkable, is it not?
I wish him well.
He asked me, shy man that he is, to say another thing. The 25,000 francs, which is banked in your name, he wishes it. Where are you, Madame? Poor Madame. Where are you, Madame? I would give it to him. But just a while ago, below at the furnace, he fashioned a thing. Oh, it's diabolical, the equipment your husband can make. Before he left, he lifted it up with both hands and said, "Just my wife's size." Ugh.
And if I give it to him?
He will have compassion for you, he says. Only that. He will honor your desire to remain alone.
Very well.
Ah, you are a good wife. Oh, a word.
Yes?
I, too, have compassion for you. You must understand that.
Compassion? Why?
Your husband is a brute. He is a brute. He is also an imbecile.
Yes.
He is better off if he is dead.
Yes.
What?
I said yes. He is better off if he is dead.
Of course he is. Madame, I take your leave. Madame Lafarge, open quickly, open.
Monsieur Dennis,
Madame,
what are you doing in my chamber?
a terrible thing, so terrible.
What are you talking about?
What she has said.
Who?
The wife of your son. She said
What?
Oh,
What is it?
that she wished your son dead.
I'm sure every wife in the world has wished her husband dead at one time or another.
But the way it was said.
How?
With a kind of madness, with a curling of the lips, a clawing of the hand, with hate, with purpose. I wish my husband dead, she said. The heavens give me strength to make it so, she said.
No.
Yes.
This banter kept up a few moments more. Then Mama became firmly convinced that she had a potential murderess for a daughter-in-law. Dennis, on the other hand, went to the pharmacy and bought some arsenic. Listening to Crime Classics and your host, Mr. Thomas Hyland.
October 14th, 1953, Crime Classics on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
You know, it's true. Difficult times have a way of focusing us. We have to think about what matters most when it comes to our spending, our health care. No doubt. This is why so many people are joining MediShare right now. MediShare is a trusted way to save up to 50% on your monthly healthcare costs. More than 400,000 people have already made the switch. It's pretty obvious why, too, especially now during this challenging season with healthcare costs and out-of-pocket expenses going up. MediShare can save you a lot of money. The typical family saves $500 a month. And MediShare is a Christian healthcare sharing ministry that's worked beautifully for 29 years. There are different options to choose from to fit your budget. I'll give you the number here in a second, and if you call, you can get a price within 2 minutes. Maybe now is the perfect time to make the switch and start saving. Here you go. Call 833-34-BIBLE. That's 833-34-BIBLE. 833-34-BIBLE.
Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, more of Crime Classics, the 7-layered arsenic cake of Madame Lafarge, from October 14th, 1953.
And now, once again, Thomas Hyland and the second act of Crime Classics and his report to you on the 7-layered arsenic cake of Madame Lafarge.
If you happen to pick up any standard almanac of France for the year 1840 and look up the climate for the first week of the year, you will read Il fait froid. That's the French way for putting it that there were blizzards and snows and hails and sleets and cold rains. As a matter of fact, this was one of the most miserable weeks in the annals of French weather. It is only legend, but it's worth mentioning. A freak storm up from the provinces caused a fall of frozen bloaters on the banks of the Seine. And northward, in the town of Glandier, the blizzard swirled bleakly around the parapets of the Lafarge castle. But on the main floor, in a kitchen lighted by a roaring blaze and warmed by a scene of domestic enterprise...
No, you must take the dough and roll it. There, on the table of my aunt.
Your aunt must have been too generous, Madame Lafarge, to have given you so much furniture.
Knead the dough, daughter-in-law. And now I must ask you a question.
What is it?
Do you hate my son, your husband?
I will answer you. At times I do hate him.
This I can understand. But do you wish him dead?
Oh, no. Oh, perhaps in a burst of fury, yes, but... Oh, no, he...
Yes?
Like a child. Like a small child.
Dennis said...
What?
Nothing. Dennis is so quick to take offense. He cares so much for my son, have you noticed? Truly a friend, truly.
I feel for your son. Somehow, right now I feel for your son a warmth. So the baking of these cakes, which I will send to him in Paris.
I am the most fortunate of mothers-in-law.
I have resolved to give my marriage every chance to forget what has happened. Therefore, I will do as my husband bids.
You will send him the money?
All of it that is in my name.
25,000 francs?
To the sous. I will send it along with the cake.
Marie.
Yes, dear mother-in-law?
You are good. It is important that Charles build his blast furnace. When that is done...
Never mind. Here, will you put the dough in the pan? There should be enough to fill those 5 small ones.
Gladly.
I will wash my hands and write Charles a note.
You'll find the pen on the desk of my aunt. And when you are finished, we will put it with the cakes and the money. And Dennis will mail all of it. Let me kiss you.
And they offered each other their cheeks. Then Marie washed her hands and wrote her husband a tender note. Madame Lafarge put the cakes, 5 small ones, into the oven, which her aunt had willed to her, and dozed for a while in her aunt's favorite chair. Then the cakes were ready. They were iced and wrapped. Into the parcel was then inserted an envelope containing 25,000 francs, and a few words of encouragement and endearment and new resolution. Then...
Dennis?
Madame and Madame.
Dennis, take this parcel and mail it to Monsieur Lafarge in Paris. It contains cakes and money, so mail it with dispatch. And Dennis, my mother-in-law and I would appreciate an opportunity to become more... Well, you may spend a few days where you wish, Dennis. Not here. Not here, Dennis.
Not here, Dennis.
Oh, Charles Lafarge got the parcel all right. It was mailed all right, and he got it. But if you think for one moment that Dennis was there when it arrived, you're right.
So, my dear friend Charles, I thought that you would be lonesome in Paris. So many of the young men get lonely in Paris.
You are good.
So I thought to... Now, who could that be? Charles. Charles?
Now, who could that be?
May I see? I will see. Oh. Well, thank you. A package for you, Charles.
A package?
Yes, it is. May I open it for you? I will open it for you. It's from Glandier. From your wife. What could it be?
I feel kindly toward my wife. Perhaps
Yeah?
when this of the blast furnace is done, when I get back to Glandier, I will...
A cake?
I like cake.
Such a large cake. And here, an envelope. Ooh, money.
How much?
3,000 francs.
I hoped she'd send the 25.
Oh, there is a note here, too.
Read it to me.
Dear Charles, keep warm. Here is cake, here is money. Your wife, Marie. Charles?
Yes?
May I cut a piece of cake for you? I will cut a piece of cake for you. Myself, I will eat none of it. My stomach is turning into a paunch.
It is a fine-looking cake.
Here. Eat. Do you like it? Is it good? Is it light?
This isn't going to end well. October 14th, 1953. Crime Classics here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. The conclusion follows these important messages. Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, the conclusion of Crime Classics and the 7-layered arsenic cake of Madame Lafarge from October 14th, 1953.
More.
Here. Eat. What's the matter?
The cake lies against my heart.
Oh?
Painfully. With much prayer.
Help! Help! My friend is sick! Doctor! Doctor! My friend has eaten of cake and he is sick! His wife sent him cake and he is sick! His wife sent him cake and he became sick, Inspector. I do not wish to say it, but you forgive me, do you not? Yes, you do. I was in the presence of his wife when she said she wished her husband dead, that she thought him a brute and an imbecile, and she wished him dead. And then she sent me to buy arsenic for mice, she said. For mice. Then this cake comes to my friend Charles Lafarge, and he eats of it, and now he is dead. Inspector, you forced me to say it. I did not wish to say it, but you forced me.
Marie Fortunée Capello Lafarge was arrested on the charge of murder. She was put in prison in January 1841 and brought to trial in July. It is safe to say that this period was a time of travail, for Marie lost 40 pounds, her golden hair turned to silver, and her youthful complexion turned ashen. These, in the main, were observations made by Raoul Lacy, the George Garvey of the Fourth Estate of that day. Nor, during the trial, were the interrogations less unmerciful. She was asked, first of all, whether she loved her husband.
Less, perhaps, than other women. More, perhaps, than some.
And did she ever say she wished him dead?
No, not meaningly.
May I make a statement? My name is Denis Barbier. Charles Lafarge was my good friend. We addressed each other in the second person singular, familiar as tu. I grieve for his death. I grieve that his widow has been placed in such a precarious position. Yet I am forced to say that I, Denis Barbier, friend of Charles Lafarge, did hear Marie Lafarge wish her husband dead meaningly.
You provoked me.
Poor little thing.
You did. You provoked me.
If you wish to say so, I will not disagree. Wife to my friend Charles Lafarge, now dead by poison.
Of arsenic, indeed, which Dennis himself had purchased.
I myself purchased the arsenic and gave it to you.
It was for mice.
For mice, if you wish to say so, I will never disagree.
It was for mice.
For mice.
Ask my mother-in-law. Ask her. sir.
Madame Lafarge.
Very well. I recall no mice. I run a clean chateau.
And your daughter-in-law says for mice. I say you killed my dear friend Charles Lafarge. Murderous!
No!
Murderous!
No!
Yes.
And what of the cake?
There were 5 small cakes.
There was but one cake, a large cake of 7 layers.
Ask my mother-in-law. Ask her.
Madame Lafarge.
I do not remember.
You yourself put them in those 5 pans.
I do not remember. Murderous!
No!
Yes!
And what of the money?
From the bank, I took 25,000 francs and put them in the parcels.
There was only 3,000 francs in the parcel. Murderous! Murderous! Murderous!
Marie-Lafarge was found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment at hard labor. Also occasional exposures in the pillories. Then Mama, 12 years later on her deathbed, suddenly...
I remember. It was not a 7-layered cake. It was 5 small ones which Mary sent to my son. Something must be done.
And something was done. Marie-Lafarge, who had already served 12 years, had her sentence reduced to just 5 more years. Then she was sent to a home. Then she killed herself.
And here again is Thomas Hyland.
Next week, the broad state of New Mexico, at a time when it was worth your life to walk down the street, armed or unarmed, day or night. My report to you will be on Billy Bonnie Bloodletter, also known as the Kid. Thank you. Good night.
Madame Lafarge, tonight's crime classic, was adapted from the original court reports and newspaper accounts by Morton Fine and David Friedkin. The music was composed and conducted by Bernard Herrmann, and the program is produced and directed by Elliott Lewis. Thomas Hyland is portrayed on radio by Lou Merrill. In tonight's story, Eve McVeigh was heard as Marie, Irene Pedro as Madame Lafarge, Joseph Kearns as Dennis, Edgar Barrier as Noonie, and William Conrad as Charles. Roy Rowan speaking.
Yes, real-life information. Elliott Lewis liked to deal with that reality stuff way back when, adapting crime accounts and stuff of the day and making it into one of his shows. He did that with Suspense when he produced that, and he did it with Crime Classics. October 14th, 1953, Crime Classics on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now, one of our most recent acquisitions, thanks to those of you who have contributed to our Buy Me a Coffee campaign at classicradio.stream, an episode of Jack Armstrong, the All-American Boy. This episode originally broadcast October 14th, 1940.
Jack Armstrong, the All-American Boy. Wave the flag for Hudson High, boys. Show them how we stand. Every stellar team be champions, known throughout the land. Wheaties, breakfast of champions, bring you the thrilling adventures of Jack Armstrong, the All-American Boy. Hello, fellows and girls. Here we are, all set to accompany Jack Armstrong, Billy, Betty, and Uncle Jim on a thrilling trip across the Pacific. We're glad you're with us for this exciting series. And right now, Jack and his companions are embarking on a journey of high adventure, and we know that you'll want to listen every day. The schooner Spindrift is sailing out of San Francisco Bay for the Sulu Sea, far on the other side of the Pacific. With Jack, Billy, Betty, and Uncle Jim aboard, she's slipping through the bay toward the Golden Gate, with its mighty suspension bridge stretching above. Ahead of her lies the Pacific, and the search for a sunken yacht with its vital cargo of uranium-235, the element that may hold the secret to unlock the limitless power contained in the atom. But things are happening aboard the Spindrift. While Billy has the wheel with Betty beside him, Jack and Uncle Jim are going below to search out a hidden stowaway Betty discovered in the main cabin. Listen. I looked in here before, Uncle Jim, but I didn't see a soul.
But at that time, you didn't really expect to find anyone, did you, Jack?
Well, no. I thought that Betty was just a little nervous and was imagining things.
She wasn't imagining things this time, Jack. You can depend on that.
She certainly must have seen something.
Be careful now. If anyone's here and tries to take us by surprise...
I'll be careful. Look, there's no one here.
Doesn't seem that way, does it? But Betty's fright was certainly real.
Wait a minute. Look, Uncle Jim, look under that port bunk. Is that an old shoe turned on end? Or is that...
We'll soon find out. I'll give it a twist.
Oh, there. Split the main brace. Don't take you for landlord.
Well, what do you know? Does that sound familiar?
Why, it's Blackbeard.
Blackbeard. I'll twist his foot again and make sure.
Oh, and lay off that slice and let an old tar come up there. Royal, but that's a fine way to treat an old friend.
Up you come, Blackbeard. No Reagan and all.
Uncle Jim, did you ever see Blackbeard look so foolish?
He should look foolish, pulling a landlubber trick like this.
Well, Blackbeard, what's your story this time?
It's a long and a sad story this time, Jack. Trim the sheets of it ain't. A story of double-cross and misplaced faith.
You'd better make it short, Blackbeard. We're going to turn you over to the harbor patrol before we clear the Golden Gate.
Oh, now, Captain Jim, sir, you wouldn't do that to an old shipmate.
And I'll help him, Blackbeard. See if I won't.
Cross my stays, but you're almighty suspicious. Both of you. Why, I've got some information that's worth a pirate's treasure to you. That I have.
You ought to know something. You're in head over heels with this gang that's trying to cross us up.
No, Captain Fairfield, that's where you're wrong. I'll admit I was in with them, but there's a limit, Captain Jim, sir, to what even Blackbeard Flint can swallow.
It must be some limit, Blackbeard. Well, come up on deck, where I can spot the first patrol boat, and we'll hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Captain Fairfield. And when you listen to an old salt spin a sad yarn, you'll find mercy in the bottom of your heart. Up we go.
You go first, Jack, then Blackbeard. I'll bring up the rear.
Okay, Uncle Jim. Hi, Betty. We found your stowaway.
Blackbeard. So it was you.
Why, Split McKeel's and Miss Betty, it was you who gave me away. And there's Billy a-holding the wheel like a true son of the salt.
Well, I'll be doggone, Blackbeard, of all people.
Hey, at your service, Billy. Tis a fine feeling to have a rolling deck under me again. But watch your sheets there, Billy. You're spilling a little wind from your sails. Trim in.
Never mind the sailing lessons, Blackbeard. I see a patrol boat on our lee, and you haven't much time.
Better make it good, Blackbeard. It'll be a long time before you have a chance to spin us another yarn.
Cross my stays, Jack. You shouldn't be so quick at disbelieving. Now, I admit, when you and I crossed back at Hudson, I was in with bad company. They sent me there on a little matter of a chart or something, and maybe to see if you'd gotten a wee package from abroad.
Oh, so you know about the ring, too.
Quiet, Billy. We'll let Blackbeard do the talking.
Well, I'll be honest with you, Billy. They told me everything, and that's why I'm here, to spill the truth to my old friend.
You better get to it, Blackbeard. That patrol boat is closing in.
Now, listen, Jack, my lad, and you'll hear a tale that'll make your blood curdle. You and your Uncle Jim are up against a cruel and desperate collection of half-breeds who'll stop at nothing. Nothing, my lad. Nothing. The skipper of this gang of cutthroats hangs out in Manila, but he's got his men everywhere. Everywhere. Why, he can turn his little finger and they'll be doing handsprings for him in San Francisco or Timbuktu.
Oh, we'll scratch Timbuktu off our list then, Blackbeard.
It won't do you no good, Jack. No matter where you are, he'll have his crew a-shadowing you and ready to pounce whenever he gives the word.
They didn't have much luck pouncing in San Francisco, Blackbeard.
Billy, you're a little too smart for them there. But they know you better now. And, Billy, my lad, if you'll port your helm a wee bit, we'll sort of edge away from that patrol boat. Well, as I was a-saying, you're up against a crew the likes of which you've never seen. They know a lot, they do. They know that Professor Loring's yacht went down somewhere in the Sulu Sea.
And they'd like to know where, wouldn't they, Blackbeard?
They'll stop at nothing to find out where the yacht lies, Miss Betty. And they know... listen now, Captain Fairfield. They know that you've got a wee bit of chart that tells where she's a-lying in Davy Jones' locker.
Patrol boat's getting close, Blackbeard.
Douse my claims if she ain't Captain Fairfield, but when I'm through, you'll maybe change your tack.
What else do they know, Blackbeard?
They know you've got a certain ring. Why, Jack, my lad, they even know you had that ring sent to the small post office before you picked it up. And they want that ring just as bad as they want that little chart.
Anything else, Blackbeard?
Why, Colonel McCombers, Captain Fairfield. Ain't that enough?
You haven't told us why you had this sudden change of heart, nor why you stowed away.
Shriveled my shrouds, so I haven't. Oh, Billy, my lad, it fair breaks my heart to see you mishandle such a trim schooner that way. Now, if you'll trim in that mainsail, just...
Don't mind him, Billy. He's just stalling for time while he thinks up a good answer.
Now, there, Miss Betty. You always had a kind word for me before this. It is a sad blow to an old tar when you turn again me.
Since Blackbeard doesn't want to talk anymore, Jack, you'd better hoist that signal flag to call in the patrol boat.
Why, trip my top and lifter. Of course I'll talk, Captain Fairfield. And you was asking...
I was asking why you had this sudden change of heart and why you stowed away. You've had enough time to think up a bully answer.
I seem slow in answering, Captain Fairfield. It's 'cause the matter fair wrings my heart. Captain Fairfield, you wouldn't believe it, but I've been double-crossed.
You? Double-crossed?
Double-crossed, Jack. I didn't know that people could have such black hearts. Why, Jack, that gang is lower than a sunken schooner.
It must have been a new experience for you, Blackbeard. Tell us how they double-crossed you.
Captain Fairfield, I'll be honest with you, frank and honest. They sent me to Hudson to do them a small favor. And they says to me, Blackbeard, you may be able to do it or you may not. But whether you do it or not, we'll buy your ticket back to Manila.
A small favor? Do you call trying to steal that chart from us a small favor?
Not steal it, Miss Betty. And how was I to know the little chart meant so much to you? How was I to know you were a-starting on this trip to the Sulu Sea?
Of course, you couldn't even guess that Uncle Jim would be interested, could you, Blackbeard? You couldn't even guess that he might want to carry on Professor Loring's work.
And you couldn't possibly know, could you, Blackbeard, how important this uranium-235 is to our country?
Why, bust my balusters. How was I to know such a thing?
Go on, Blackbeard.
Well, as I was a-saying, Captain Fairfield, this unscrupulous heathen crowd, blast their bilges, they was to give me a ticket back to Manila and maybe pay me a little, just a little for my trouble. But they didn't. You wouldn't believe it, Captain Fairfield, but they didn't.
You seem to have gotten from Hudson to San Francisco pretty quick.
Why, sure I did, Jack. They paid my way there and on an airliner, too. When I got to Frisco, they said, Blackbeard, before you return to Manila, we've got another small job for you.
That job was to sink our ship, I suppose.
Well, not exactly that, Jack. So I says, no. Me do a thing like that to my old friends now that I know they need that chart? No, not Blackbeard.
And when you wouldn't try and rob us again, I suppose they fired you.
Riddle, my rudder, you took the words right out of my mouth, Captain Fairfield.
That patrol boat's bearing in, Blackbeard. You'll just about have time to tell us why you stowed away.
Why, Jack, my lad, why else should I stow away except to get back to Manila again?
Uncle Jim, shall I run the signal flag aloft for the patrol boat?
Wait a minute, Jack. Now that Blackbeard's through, I have a few questions to ask you.
Ask me anything, Captain Fairfield. Anything you want. And jump my jib if I don't answer them frank and honest.
Who's the head of this gang in Manila?
Well, now, that's a wee bit hard to say. He didn't exactly...
Out with it, Blackbeard, quick.
Well, since you insist, Dr. Shapato.
Dr. Shapato?
Well, leastwise, that's what they call him.
What nationality is he?
Well, he's got a bit of everything in him.
Who was the chap who broke into the ship?
They call him Lazaro.
Well, what on earth did he want, Blackbeard?
Blow him a bowsprit, Billy. I don't know.
Now answer this one quickly, Blackbeard. What do you know about the ring?
What's that?
The ring. The ring that Dr. Shapato is so keen on getting. What's the secret of it?
Captain Fairfield, you've got me there. Honest, you've got me there.
I wonder. All right, Blackbeard. Make yourself useful and run out that forecastle.
Aye, Captain Fairfield. Thank you, sir. I'll hurry up for you in a jiffy.
Uncle Jim, you aren't taking him along.
Yes, I am, Jack.
But you don't believe him. After all, he hasn't told us a thing we didn't know before, except about Dr. Shapato.
I know, Jack. But I've a hunch there's a lot more he will tell us if he's not careful. We'll let him think that we believe him, and we'll watch him like hawks.
Gosh, but we'd better, Uncle Jim. He's after that chart and ring.
Of course he is. We'll dump him off at Honolulu. But in the meantime, we've got to discover the secret of the ring. And maybe Blackbeard will throw us on the right track.
Say, imagine crossing the Pacific with Blackbeard on board. But maybe Uncle Jim knows what he's doing. He's got to find out the secret of that ring. Anyway, you can bet there's going to be lots of excitement on board before the Spindrift gets to Honolulu. So listen in, all of you, at the same time tomorrow, to the mystery of the remarkable ring with Jack Armstrong, the All-American Boy.
Have you tried Wheaties? They're whole wheat with all of the bran. Won't you try Wheaties?
This is Franklin McCormick saying goodbye until tomorrow for General Mills, makers of Wheaties, breakfast of champions, who have just presented another episode of Jack Armstrong, the All-American Boy.
Breakfast food in the land. Wave the flag for Hudson High, boys. Show them how we stand. Ever shall our team be champ.
Oh, there you go. Jack Armstrong, the All-American Boy, from October 14th, 1950, here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please thank this station and support their advertisers. It's their kindness and courtesy that allows us to be with you each and every time we roll around here on your favorite station. Now, if you miss a day, you do not have to miss a single show. All of our shows are available on our webpage, classicradio.stream, where you can stream them on demand. You can also find a list of various podcast sites that have our shows available for download. You can also learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. That's fun. It really is. I've been doing it for years. And if it wasn't for hard drive crashes, we'd have a really great collection. As it is, our collection is quite good. But we also, you can find our links to social media. You can send me a note. You can also buy me a coffee to help us acquire additional classic radio collections. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tell all your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station.